the changelings are already here. You can find my latest book, Hey Stranger, A Changeling Chronicle, available now on Amazon in paperback and ebook format.
Captain, incoming message.
It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. Groovy.
Hi-ho. This is me, Kermit the Frog.
Hello there.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Not a great plan.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Let's see what's out there. Engage.
Hey there, we're Those Sci-Fi Guys, and this is that Those Sci-Fi Guys show. Just two working dudes, different lives, different jobs, but a whole lot of love for science fiction and the fun that comes with. We are your hosts. I am P.S. McKay, and there seems to be a These Sci-Fi Guy here. What the hey?
Yeah, buddy.
Well, and I'm DT Cavman, and as always, we're very glad to invite in members of our friends, the Sci-Fi Guys. So welcome, Dave. Glad to have you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for joining. We really appreciate it. And again, I do have to say thank you so much for the tutelage in working StreamYard and giving this podcast a whole new lease on life. I gotta say, there was a death clock. So
we should have mentioned that you. We should have mentioned you in our Sci-Fi Mentors podcast just recently.
We did. That's how it all happened. Like I started talking about it, and then you transitioned into the mentor thing. So
you're right. I did.
Well, the funny thing is, you guys have been around. You guys have been around a lot longer than we have. So
maybe a year and a half, something like that. Not much. I mean, I guess in the podcast years, it's a long time, but not really. Not in the grand scheme of things. But
we've kind of chameleoned it a little. We've kind of had to do ebbs and flows and changes as technology and stuff. I mean, we were pretty much just shooting it out into the void for the first year or so before we started really picking up on the other platforms.
Oh yeah.
Is that more you know?
I did. Yeah, I added some drops. I added some drops. Yeah. Yeah. Here we go.
I've seen everything. I've seen it all.
God, I hate this one.
Yeah, well, that's your problem. That's not my problem. Anyway, Dave, thank you so much for joining. You have an open invitation to join, and everyone else from the Sci-Fi Guys has an open invitation. So just
Please
relay that to John, Chad, and Shane for me. Hey, I remember all their names. So.
I've known them I've known Shane the longest. We've actually known each other probably since like beginning of 2000s. So
okay.
I've known him the longest, and then I've got to know John and Chad. I've known them both of them at least like 8, 9 years, 10 years, something like that. So okay. I've known Shane close to 20. So
yeah. Well,
yeah, he's got a fantastic story. I need to have him do his story sometimes about on the show. I don't know how I can incorporate it, because he's a music major. He's got his PhD in music theory and everything. And he had a music teacher told him because he stutters, and they said, "You'll never make it. You'll never do anything." And
oh God!
He and Shane proved them wrong, and he does it all the time. He's fantastic.
Good.
He's such an awesome guy.
Well, he's a great addition to the show, and I did express that to him when we did our last crossover and everything. But I do appreciate his addition to everything. You guys have a great thing going, and he just adds to it. So yeah, but yeah. So DT, Dave had a special request to join us. What brings us here today?
So we've been kind of kicking around like, and every time we do anything Star Trek related, we invariably have to mention some blunder they've made along the way, even though Star Trek is very near and dear to our hearts. You know.
I thought it was
and
Star
we're-
Wars. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
do you need to go back and do the homework and come back?
Hey, look,
Kidding.
that's also pretty dear to our hearts too. I'd go up and get the lightsaber, but it's in the bedroom and Mrs. Catman's sleeping. So it's big one. One of those ones you buy at Disney with all the little parts where you can create your own.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
You're
yeah.
such a nerd.
Yeah.
I'm a 40-year-old nerd, like slapping one together.
I'm a 55-year-old nerd. If you look behind me, you can see all my 3D printed models of everything. So
Yeah.
It took at the last Comic-Con I went to. It was very hard for me to walk away from a reasonably priced, like full,
nice,
like metal handle, everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh god. I've got my kid here, and I'm like, got to show fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
She's 13. Got to show fiscal responsibility.
Yeah. That's a bad
Honey, turn away. You know.
Oh, that's good stuff. So continue. Why are we here?
Well, we've talked a bit about the stumbles, and we have done a few reviews of fairly decent Trek episodes lately, just kind of random ones. But we are going to talk about some follies, some Trek follies, in specifically. There's plenty of others. Star Wars has its own. That'd be an entire own episode.
So, well, that's why I said let's focus on Star Trek only for right now.
Right.
And even with Star Trek, that could be 3 or 4 episodes, and
of
not.
course.
We'll,
It could.
that'll come up later. But
it was recently we got some new trailers of some upcoming sci-fi projects, including season 3 of Strange New Worlds, where there appears to be a Trelane
I know.
reference,
Yeah.
as well as some like really retro, like try to make it look like it's 1960s. Like there's going to either be some planet or something going on, so it looks kind of interesting. I guess we'll see.
Interesting.
And the latest
is
Star
term
Wars
you
project.
use. I got you.
I'm super excited for the latest Star Wars project, Tales of the Bounty Hunters.
Those were the
I thought it was
good
Tales
books.
of the
Star
Underworld.
Wars days.
I hope they're going to do
Underworld.
It like
Yes, it is Tales of the Underworld. Sorry.
Okay.
Tales of
What
the
were you
Bounty
saying,
Hunters
Dave?
was one of those books.
What were you saying, Dave?
Oh, I was just saying that Tales of the Bounty Hunter was a book series in the expanded universe. So
I got
that's
you.
why I was like, oh, really? I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
So, Underworld. Okay, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
hopefully, I have yet to see Skeleton Crew yet. I'm sorry. I just haven't gotten around to do it yet. I kind of wait. I like to wait till the whole series that is done, and then I'll kind of binge everything. But
It's pretty
I
good.
know I want
Mac
to.
liked it.
Mac liked it, so that's
Yeah,
Skeleton
that's
Crew
nice.
was
Good.
pretty
Yeah.
amazing. Yes. I don't know why my camera's not showing. I'm fixing that right now.
But yeah, no, it's worth a watch, especially because it's very nostalgic for 80s kids. It's got some E.T. Goonies vibe. So
Nice.
wow, the big
Wow.
giant head just.
I know. I know.
That's it.
That's my laptop.
Okay.
Let's see if the anchor
Kind of
works.
reminds me of Q.
I know. Bad choice, Picard. There we go. I don't know what happened. I
Mon Capitan.
Mon Capitan. Yeah. I'm like, ugh. So anyway. So yeah, so I thought, okay, well let's put together a list. There's no particular rhyme or reason to said list, but the tragic choices that Star Trek decided to make, either with canon or with story or with character, like just the biggest follies that
We're just throwing it all out.
we're just throwing it all out on the wall, hoping it sticks in some way, shape, or form. And Dave, I'm gonna throw the floor to you first, in honor of our esteemed guest here.
Well, I won't mention Discovery because I've seen one episode of it and I was like, "What is this garbage?" So You
You
know,
can
Mac
just
made
say
it like-
Discovery, and we're all done. So
Mac made it
Okay,
like 3
end of pod.
seasons
Click.
and quit.
yeah.
I can't believe it was. Yeah, Roddenberry would be turning in his grave. It was funny. We were texting back and forth a little bit this afternoon. I was just talking to Mac on some stuff, and when he came up with this idea, and I was like, man, then all of a sudden, then my brain just started kicking over stuff. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest follies, and don't hate me, please don't hate me, but Wesley Crusher is the biggest folly out there. He was
I didn't
so
get a picture
annoying.
of him yet.
You know, maybe it's
I'll
just
get him.
because of my age. I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I just
There could be.
it was during that time where everything had to have either a teenager or a cutesy thing, you know, to offset the important stories. And Wesley was just a little whiny brat all the time. It seemed like, you know, I mean, honestly, I bypassed most of the episodes. I mean, there was like one or two that he was really integral in. You know, I think one of them when he was in when he went to the academy and they had to do some kind of they were
First
doing
duty.
some kind of flyby that in some kind of formation that wasn't allowed, you know, and then they all got in trouble for it. I mean, I liked that one. I was like, well, that shows some growth and all that, but you know, that was to me just, you know, and then to make him an ensign, even though it was an acting ensign. I'm sorry. Starfleet is a military organization. You're going to just arbitrarily, oh, hey, guess what? You're an ensign.
The writers
Right.
fought against that idea, by the way. They didn't like to say that Starfleet was a true military organization.
Well, they were because the Federation.
I know they were. I disagree completely with that.
The civilian part of it.
Yep. You are correct. I agree with you, but I remember the pushback that the writers gave.
There's a lot of issues with that, you know, and maybe it's just because, like you know,
Well, let's focus on
I put on a
Wesley.
uniform.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I am.
Okay, sorry.
Reel it in.
Nah.
But seeing, you know, this here, let's go ahead and put this child flying this mega warship. Oh, we're
flying
not a
the
warship.
flagship.
Okay.
The flagship.
Would you have a 13-year-old drive one of the huge boats out of Woods Hole to go, you know, look for shipwrecks and oceanography? No.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care how smart you are, you know, it's still your kid. It's just
life skills.
To me, I mean, that kind of stuff, I mean, especially coming from, I grew up on the original series. I didn't watch it in the 60s because I wasn't born. I was born in the late 60s. But I remember watching them on Saturday mornings and in different times, you know, going to my grandparents' house or whatever, and it was always on. And, you know, when you saw the way Kirk was and all that, of course, you know, immediately seeing Picard was totally different than Kirk, which that's fine. And I kind of like that. It was something different. But just Wesley was annoying. I'm sorry. I can't put it in any other terms. I mean, what'd you guys think of Wesley? You know, I mean, did you like him? Did you think the character added anything besides being Beverly's son? You know,
DT, why don't you go first on this?
Early Wesley was not great. Like season 1 Wesley was for the most part really not good. You know, the one where he goes and he actually fails the Academy entrance exam, mostly because somebody else cheated. That you actually got to see a better side of Wesley, but most of his early season stuff was kind of crap. I think they did a better job of showing him with some growing pains later on. The whole ensign thing was definitely kind of a pain in the neck, and that's something new Star Trek has done a lot of by having both Uhura and Tilly be cadets on these shows when they start. And I get it, you know, the current day military will send a cadet to shadow in a unit, but
For more than
they're
a
not
year.
going to be. But they're one that, and two, like they're not going to be taken to war, you know. So
and they're
there's
not
that,
going to be operating the equipment, you know, without supervision.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I do kind of like the idea of, some practical experience and whatnot, but I mean, he was what, 15 or something? Wasn't that like the age he started on?
That was, yeah, that
Um,
is correct.
and it becomes even more prevalent as a folly when you see how well they actually did the same thing with Jake Sisko.
Yeah, he kind of annoyed me too. So
Well,
He did,
but I saw the growth in him. I really liked the growth in Jake.
Mhm.
How he didn't want to even be in Starfleet.
Correct.
And I
it
like
was
the growth of
presumed that
him.
he was going to be in Starfleet, though, by everyone around him, which was a great story idea.
Yeah. Although the picture you just put up there, I just realized too that's sitting next to Wesley,
That's Nick Locarno,
aka known as.
Tom Paris. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't see it.
Are you sure?
That's Tom Paris. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like. Wasn't he on Voyager?
There's a fan theory before Lower Decks went and them two separate characters, although made jokes about it. But there was a fan theory that because he came from a very long family history of Starfleet admirals and stuff, that he went into the academy under, like, say, a mother's maiden name or something like that. That was before they decided to flesh the history all out. And I guess the only reason why we have Tom Paris was that they couldn't get the rights to Nick Locarno.
No, it wasn't that they couldn't get the rights. It's that they didn't want to pay the royalties to the original writer
Right.
for
Which
First
is
Duty.
so cheap. That's a folly.
I know.
Because that would have
That's
made
a
a very
folly.
interesting, because they're pretty much the same character. His entire backstory is he screwed up on a mission, lied about it, and people died. It's like they took Nick Locarno and Ro Laren, rubbed them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm sorry,
All right.
DT. I didn't mean to remove you. Sorry.
From my own podcast.
I know. I apologize. That wasn't.
Mac was like, he's saying something I don't like. Click. He's done.
This is all teaching me the things that I need to preload before we start recording. So, but
good.
You are correct, sir.
For Wesley, it forced him to grow up.
Yeah, I agree. I'll give my impression of Wesley. I was treated a lot like how Wesley was at a younger age, and so I identified with him as like some kind of exceptional kid that I wanted to aspire to. As an adult, looking at him, I can entirely see why everyone did not like him. The writing for him was atrocious, and I don't blame. Early. I don't blame Will Wheaton for it. He was just given what he was given. And in season 3, they started doing episodes starting with Evolution, the first episode of season 3, where he started owning up to mistakes that he made. And he started to learn those things, and they toned him back a little bit. Yes, I understand. For Best of Both Worlds, he became a full-on ensign, or field ensign with a field promotion and everything. And I know I'm ruining all the terms and all that. Just run with it.
But here's the thing: if you promote him to ensign, then he didn't need to go to the academy.
Well, I agree with that too.
They gave him a direct commission.
I know, and that's the thing. So what is it, guys? And that just shows the writers, although could tell a good story.
They should have made him an enlisted rank. That would have fit back.
Yeah, give him a crewman. Give him crewman status. Something.
Have him shadow Chief O'Brien.
The only other crewman on the ship, apparently.
The only other non-commissioned officer ever mentioned
on 1,200
Lower Decks.
In a population of 1,200 people on the Enterprise. So, no. Crewman Tarsus was also there. So there was that.
Yeah, but
And
no
he
one with the
lied.
rank of crewman ever had nothing ever worked out for them.
No, it
They
didn't.
either
It
get
really didn't.
embarrassed out of the service or die.
Yeah, that is all true. All true. So I understand the Wesley criticism. And when you brought this up when we were texting back and forth, I was like, I could guarantee you that DT and I would never have brought this angle up in any way, shape, or form. So this is why I was like, yeah, I want you on. So we never would have said this, but yeah, it is true. Think about this though. The naked, what was it? Oh, what was the episode where they had the two planets where there was the one planet that was really put together, but they sold all the drugs to the other planet, and this was in season 1.
Yeah.
But apparently the planet that was taking the drugs was told that they had an affliction, and this drug would keep them alive, but it was really just keeping them
Used
addicted.
to. They literally did sell them medicine at one point, but
Yeah,
they
and
eventually got addicted to it.
right. And then they had this whole just say no segment between Wesley and Tasha
yeah.
and Data. Or was it Data or Jordy?
Oh, I think it's Data
It's been
because
years
it
since I've
was
seen it.
symbiosis.
Symbiosis. Okay. But yeah, that was that point where like I don't, and Wesley, the innocent person, is like, I just don't understand. Like, why would someone willingly put something in their body that would do that to them? And then Tasha's trying to explain, well, it's not, but it's done in such a Hollywood way, or it's cringeworthy because the Just Say No campaign was fresh and hot at the time.
Yeah. Maurice
yeah.
Hurley was responsible for putting it in. So
He was, yeah. So
apparently over the objection of almost every actor on the set.
Oh, sure, yeah. And then
they're like, it's too ham-fisted. He's like, no, but kids watch this show.
Yeah. Well, they did. That's also true. So, and I probably lapped all that up too. So, but yeah, I'm right there. I can understand. Wesley was a terribly developed character at the beginning, and they did what they could to develop him. And then they turned him into some kind of space shaman later as a traveler, which, I think was a fitting end to him to have him transfer on to another parallel of reality.
It has allowed him to come back in several other TV series now later.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He appeared in Prodigy.
I don't,
He appeared in
that doesn't make any sense.
Stop Being an Ass.
Nope.
He was in one of the Picards, wasn't he, in season 3?
Yes.
Season 2.
The very last episode.
Yeah.
The last episode of season 2, yeah.
And that was nice, actually.
It
was a little ham-fisted, but it was nice.
It was ham-fisted. My issue is with Will Wheaton, and I complained about this with DT. Like, he knows good writing, and he knows he knows what makes a good story, and he completely has shelled out or sold out for these Ready Room episodes that he gets paid for, to praise all these new Trek episodes and things. It just drives me nuts. I used to be a big fan of Will Wheaton. I still think he's a good writer. I think he's a very effective actor, but I know a guy's got to pay the bills and everything. It just to see a person that I admired as a kid to see a person who played a character that I admired as a kid sits wrong with me the way I see him now. And I'm not being fair. I know, but that's me. So anyway.
Okay. So I think we've beaten the poor Wesley condition to.
I know.
To its inevitable.
We start off with low hanging fruit.
All right. Who's got the next volley?
You do. You do, DT. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call out some blatant. To be honest with you, some of my biggest beefs have come with recent Trek, but The fact of the matter is, they they abandoned the Marquis conflict on Voyager pretty quickly.
Oh, that was good. That's good. Yes. Yeah. Nice job.
I mean,
Please continue.
it's not an original thought. I had seen some things on it over the years, and as I've trying to take and I only made it about halfway through Voyager before I ended up in college and didn't really, the first couple of years I really didn't watch anything consistently aside from maybe sports. So I kind of missed the end of Voyager. But
me too.
The fact of the matter is, they set that up to be a big deal, and for like the first half dozen episodes, they made it a thing. And then they would have periodic
tried to make it a
returns to it.
Yeah.
But after a while, everybody just falls in line. I mean, and that's where you really would kind of need to go in order to survive an ordeal like this eventually. But
it should have been brought up later on at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? After midway through season 1, there should have been something where the Marquis, something that they believed in, something that Chakotay believed in, was direct, conflict with Janeway. And then they should have had a discussion about her or something. But you're right, DT. They just let it go. It just, they're just part of our crew now.
You'd get little hints about it with maybe some of the characters from time to time, their own backgrounds. But like the episode where Tuvok's security program goes nuts and takes over the ship because it was like a simulation if the Marquis crew actually did try to have a mutiny.
But that was
season 4.
Yeah.
It was like, okay. We haven't talked about this in a year and a half. Yeah.
It's almost the 21st century. What are we doing talking about this now?
Yeah. So, and then there was another one. You get a little conversation about it when they learn of the Dominion War and they finally get in touch with it. And then you have B'Elanna kind of go batshit crazy in a holodeck simulation where she's just like tearing Cardassians limb from limb.
Yeah.
Because
that's right.
they learned that one of the first things the Dominion did after kicking out the Klingons was trying to wipe out every living Marquis they could find. And so, I mean, it makes sense. It's connected. And I'm actually kind of glad they brought that back a little. But, it's like,
yeah.
But we didn't hear about anything like this in years almost, right? So it wasn't as consistent as it should have been. That's just my thought. And yeah, as a kid at the time, I'm like, oh, good, they solved all the problems, and then we don't have to deal with that shit anymore. We can find a way to get home. But you'd think there'd be a few more bad actors aside from maybe just Seska, like helping her out, or somebody else taking up that mantle later on, trying to, here's a shortcut home, and having like some of the Marquis maybe say, yay, I want to do this, or maybe be the exact opposite. That would have been kind of neat. Like a lot of the Marquis who were like,
flyer.
or like some of these Marquis were like, you know what, we're not going back. We're criminals back home.
Yeah, let's find, when we find a nice abandoned planet that's like nice and tropical and uninhabited. Let's split. Let's do the Splitsville. In the second episode, I believe, the very second episode of Voyager, there was talk between B'Elanna and a couple other Maquis members saying that, well, if things go down the wrong way, we need to determine if Janeway is really the proper commander here. And Chakotay got wind of this because they wanted to bring him in since he was the first officer and one of them.
And their former captain.
And he gets wind of this. He talks to them. Are you saying that we need to commit mutiny, crewmen, or whatever? And I remember as soon as one of the other plebes, not B'Elanna, brings up the possibility, we need to be aware of the possibility because they're not us. We're not them. He goes, that's complete insubordination. And if I get any word of you or anyone else in the former Marquis talking about that again, I'll be bringing you straight to the brig myself. Dresses him down completely and does that. And then right at that point, it's the second episode. Chakotay just blocks all off the idea that the Marquis could ever be an issue whatsoever, which completely disappointing. And I have to wonder, they left it open. They left it open-ended on the pilot episode of Voyager, where Janeway walks among the Marquis' ranks and says, we're bringing you in because we need you to, but understand that we'll be watching you. And then the second episode, Chakotay, number 2 or number 1, lops any and all possibilities off. So what was it behind the writer's door that decided to have them do that? There was something that was talked about behind the scenes that said, we don't need to have this interpersonal conflict, even though it was totally legitimate and everything. And later they bring out Seska, who was actually a Cardassian spy, so it wasn't an interpersonal thing and everything. But why do you think that they did that?
Well, I mean, remember, one of the last episodes of the season is the one where they have like 3 or 4 Maquis crewmen who just aren't fitting in. And then they have like Tuvok train them. And then they all go bitch Chakotay, and Chakotay knocks one on his ass.
That's right. Yeah. That was near the end of the season. Yeah.
It was the season. Technically, I guess it's the season finale. The Learning Curves, episode 16 of season 1.
Yeah. He brings them through calisthenic training and all that other stuff. Yeah.
But, but then after that, they really just kind of just fizzles. You don't get much after that.
A lot of things that fizzle. A lot of things. I agree. Dave, do you concur?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was just weak writing. I mean, they were I think they were just trying to make it easy for future episodes, to make it easy to write them in, to make it, oh, hey, we're a big happy family now. What are we going to do to survive? They didn't want to have that additional conflict in there, even though that's kind of what Battlestar Galactica ended up doing.
Oh, it really was. And that was Ronald D. Moore's makeup for all that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is, I mean, if they would have done it, it would have, Voyager probably would have ended up more like Battlestar Galactica. Oh, that would have been good.
I agree. Well, Year of Hell showed that.
Year of Hell, which was originally supposed to be an entire season-long arc. And you know what? Star Trek finally learned that, and they did that in the Xindi arc in Enterprise.
Right, in Enterprise, yeah.
Yeah, and they did a good job with that.
That was one of the things I was going to say is, that's one thing that really bothered me about Voyager is, they've got to bring in a cook. Oh, because our replicators aren't working right. We want to have Neelix here to cook for us, and so we can have food and all that. But yet they get all this fighting and all the panels fall down and all that. Then the next episode, hey, it's pristine again.
Yeah, and they were still replicating stuff. I mean,
yeah, they were trying to limit usage. I believe that's what it was minimize it.
But still,
because Janeway sure as hell got her coffee out of the replicator every
time.
I'm a coffee drinker, and that's what I would do too.
Yeah,
I'm the captain of this ship. I get my coffee.
Yep. I agree.
Is that the first time we've seen an addiction in a captain in Star Trek?
I don't know. Kirk was with all the green women, so
Yeah, I think he was a sex addict. in some, I mean, come on.
Hey, to seek out strange new life and new civilizations. Okay,
just to seek out strange. Just. I'm sorry that I don't mean to be blue or anything. Just gross.
Kirk had a different view of diplomacy than you did.
I don't know, man. The '60s were a weird time where just that kind of idea.
Go back and watch some of those episodes and the outfits that they were wearing. Ugh.
The idea of free love, gross. And I know that puts me.
Now you have to
that
pay
puts
for
me
it.
in a
OnlyFans.
No. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. The entire concept just grosses me out. Like,
Well, there were inherent risks with that too.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, not that I want to go down that road here, but but yes, addiction. What was it? I mean, Picard drank Earl Grey.
Yeah, Girl Grey tea. That's what I was gonna say.
So,
I
and
think he's only yelled at one person though for no Earl Grey, and he ended up dating her. So
oh, he didn't yell at her, did he?
like
During
I'm
lessons?
trying. Yeah, he's like he goes down to the science lab. He's like, "Is this why I can't get my Earl Grey?"
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's how we meet the meet cute. That's the meet cute right there. Oh. We have to do a review of that at some point, DT. That's a good episode to review.
It is an interesting one.
So, okay, I got
There
a good one.
definitely should have been more questions about fraternization in the chain of command, but
and that's something to talk about. Okay, I got a couple, man. All right, so we're gonna have to do at least 2 rounds each. So I'll make this one quick because the next one I
Okay.
want to really focus on. Force of Nature, the episode with
Yeah.
TNG, where the Enterprise crew is hounded by a couple ships from this nearby alien civilization that is telling them to stop using warp drive. And it ultimately comes out that using warp drive is tearing the fabric of subspace apart. And at some point there is a subspace fissure that is blown open, which causes the Enterprise to lose all control and everything, and they fly off. And you see a really cool effect of the Enterprise just like turning around as flipping around off into the distance that you never really see often on TV. But the whole idea was it was an allegory of using fossil fuels to being an environmental message, like don't use the technology because you're hurting the environment. And at the very end, Picard goes, all I wanted to do was explore space, but little did I realize that the very method I used to explore it was how I was destroying it. And the mandate from Starfleet Command was all ships have to have a speed limit of warp 5 at that point to minimize the damage.
6?
Warp 5 to minimize the damage of to subspace. And the crew is like, that's it. That's what we're getting right now. There's no solution. It's like, well, we might not have a solution. And which I found funny because then in Enterprise they had the first warp 5 engine. I'm like, oh geez, really? So they're just, retroactively it's like they're going back to Enterprise Star Trek Enterprise technology, but
they mention it maybe 1 or 2 times later in the season where Picard makes a mention. Oh well, we've gotten permission from Starfleet to exceed the speed limit for this emergency. And that was supposed to be the reason why Voyager's nacelles, those modular nacelles, were supposed to be to, I don't know, reduce the wear and tear on the space. Yeah, but Deep Space Nine completely ignored
it.
I don't
ignored
remember them ever saying anything about that.
Yeah,
Deep
it was
Space Nine
weird.
didn't have anything that went even warp 5. I think the runabout's going to go like warp 4 the first few seasons, and then they were just more worried about the Defiant imploding from the inside.
Right, yeah, being overpowered. But yeah, no, and that's the thing. So and the writers, I remember reading about from the Captain's Logs books. They were like, okay, so we had this really cool message about destroying the ozone layer or something like that, and then they're like, well,
it was ozone layer. That's what it was.
That was the ozone layer analog. And so now, and then they're like, well, now what? We're stuck with sitting at warp 5 now for the rest of the series. We're in the middle of season 6. And like, what are we doing? Like they literally handcuffed themselves for the rest of the series. And then they mentioned it's literally mentioned off screen, I think, in the pilot episode of Voyager, where the ensign that's flying Tom Paris into Deep Space Nine, showing Voyager for the first time, saying capable of warp 9.975 without hurting the subspace fabric, and whatnot. And it's like, okay, all right, well, they figured out how to not hurt the subspace fabric, but they never made any mention of it ever again after the pilot episode of Voyager.
Yes.
Not once.
This says that it was mentioned in 2 other episodes in season 7, and once merely to verify it was okay to break the new prohibition. But spin-off works and later shows totally ignored the ramifications of this episode.
Right. So what's the point? What's the point? And by the way, we don't even mention the ozone episode anymore, the ozone layer in real life anymore. So
what was the point of the ozone layer?
They wrote it. They wrote themselves into a corner. Is what they did.
Yeah. And that's the folly. There we go, everybody.
And that is actually what Losing My Religion was actually written about, was that song.
What, really?
No.
Okay.
That's me in the corner.
Why? Oh, my goodness gracious. I'm sitting here like, wait, there's some profound part of REM? Like, I didn't know. I'm like, oh, jeez.
But if you hear Picard where he's like, I always thought, I wanted to be an explorer. He kind of was losing his religion.
Well, yeah, it's true. I mean,
boom, hidden Star Trek meaning in REM.
In a sense, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Oh my gosh, that was a stretch even for me.
Yeah, you did it though. You pulled it off, DT. And you know what I got to say to that?
Groovy.
Oh,
what?
You know what I got to say to that?
Oh, that is
groovy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I had an Evil Dead video game for PlayStation, and there was literally one button. There was like a series of buttons that if you hit like the square or the triangle button, it would give one of his 2 catchphrases like "groovy" or "Yo, come get some."
Yeah. I think Wolfenstein 3D did the same thing, or Duke Nukem did the same thing.
Duke Nukem.
You hit down button like 3 times, and then he would say, "Hail to the king, baby."
Yeah. So that's my gripe. That's my gripe. And with any episode that gives a lesson like that.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
So moving on, Dave, what do you have next?
Okay. How about this? The general disregard for protocol and standing orders just for the sake of a narrative.
Oh, please continue.
It's like every other episode.
I know. Well, for New Trek,
right.
It is every episode. But
think about it this way. Okay, the Starship commanders, they get because they're so far from Earth. All right. Wrath of Khan.
Yep.
Kirk not raising the shields.
Yep.
Should he ever be a captain again? I mean, if he's just doesn't follow basic 101 stuff.
It's like sailing your ship aground.
Exactly.
You
and then of course
get court-martialed.
And because of that, your first officer dies. Even though later on he comes back to life. But that's neither here nor there.
You and I discussed this movie in deep detail.
Yeah. Well, no,
fair?
it's not just
being
Kirk.
fair.
Okay.
As my uncle said, has the most overacted word.
Well, yeah,
movie.
That was true. All right, Dave, please continue. Please continue. I'm sorry.
Well, but it wasn't just Kirk. It was Spock when he stole the Enterprise to bring Pike back to, I can't remember the name of the planet.
Talos.
Yeah,
Talos 4.
So again, your first officer basically committed mutiny and stole a Federation ship, but yet he continues to become your first officer. There's no consequences for bad actions. Picard, after the best of both worlds, he says in his logs and stuff that he still hears the Borg talking to him. Why is he the captain if he still feels a connection to the Borg?
In fairness, he should have been grounded at that point, and
he
probably would have. I mean, even if he could rehabilitate, you can't leave the Enterprise in space dock, but he need to have gone some severe evaluations. I see your point, Dave. They do it all the time. I mean, look at Michael Burnham commits mutiny in episode 1, and now by the end of the series, she's an admiral. Laren, she got in trouble, where it was clearly her fault. It wasn't like falsely accused, and now wanted by the Federation government. She acts as a soldier of fortune. But they have, and while Star Trek does love redemption stories, and I'm kind of here for some of them, but as a soldier, I'm like, okay, I've seen some guys busted down a couple of ranks, but that only happens in the junior enlisted. You don't get to be, command a brigade or a wing. If you're a captain and you're busted back down to lieutenant, you're toast. That doesn't work for officers. That's just
you're not going back up.
Yeah, once you're busted down, you're never going back up again. But still, it's just Trek constantly did that. They constantly would, I know because they're the stars, but they would constantly put them in situations. Kirk was the worst about it, especially when in the first series, when he constantly, hey, I'm leaving the Enterprise, I'm going to beam down. Why? Why is your first officer beaming down also? Or
he's the science officer.
Your first officer, your chief medical officer, and your captain are all beaming down, and you're going to leave it in the hands of your mechanic. Okay. I mean, at least in the Next Generation, they were like, oh, that's kind of a dumb idea. Let's keep the captain there. All right. I know, DT, you were an officer. I was enlisted. All right. You're enlisted. That's a job for them. Have one officer and 6 enlisted or something. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't need to be all of your officer, your bridge crew. You don't want to take.
You're not sending your entire battalion staff down there
exactly
to this area.
Exactly.
Would you send an attaché or something with a bunch of enlisted or something?
Well, I mean, you would have someone in charge of if this is reconnaissance. You'd send a reconnaissance platoon. Yeah, maybe you'd fill out. You have a medic with you. You maybe have a communication guy if you're going to be going farther out, and maybe an engineer to see what the site looks like, if you need to blow shit up or build a bridge. But, I mean, that's basically what all of these beam downs are, especially, to at least to unknown areas. They're all reconnaissance, and you're like, here, let's send the captain down. Yeah.
Without EV suits, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, no field gear either.
No field gear. Maybe a tricorder and a phaser, but
in their pajamas. They're all beaming down in their pajamas.
I just thought it was bad how the story always ended up with them getting redeemed all the time, and there was no consequences for their bad actions.
And if they were, it were almost fortuitous consequences, like Kirk being demoted in Star Trek 4 and being given a new Enterprise.
Yeah.
Well, he saved the Earth. He saved the Earth, guys. He went back in time and brought back some whales, guys.
Then what he probably would have had
still broke the Prime Directive. He still broke all these other rules in the first place.
Well, that's kind of why Babylon 5, I think, nailed it right. Like, Earth Force could not allow Sheridan to come back after he led the revolt.
Right.
It would continue to divide Earth Force. So the new president basically said, either you can leave with your pension and everything intact and retire, or I'm going to put you on trial for court martial. You're at.
This is bowling. There are rules.
So then did it, of course, while ensuring amnesty for all of his officers and whatnot, because he was the leader and not so. But like now you can see, and even though they kind of paint him to be a guy you don't want to like at first, but that's why Captain Shaw just did not like Picard and Riker. He basically calls them out on all this bullshit. It's like
Captain Shaw was the most proper Starfleet officer we had seen, I believe.
well, you see plenty of them, but they were always kind of painted as dicks. They were always
Right.
who never agreed with
Captain
Picard or
Jellicoe.
Sisko. He had his own problems, but
You have your own issues with Captain Jellicoe, but I feel like he was a very good captain for what he did in oh shoot, what was it? The
Chain of
two-parter.
Command.
Chain of Command. Thank you.
Kind of gives it away.
Yep.
I know. You don't change. Your argument is you don't change processes in the middle of a mission, and that's what they were. You're right, but
Well, Dave, this actually goes to your point. When Jellicoe takes over the Enterprise, he then, as they're getting ready to sail right into combat, essentially into a hazardous situation, he's like, you know how we have this crew that's laid out 1,000 crew, and then they're running on whatever it is, 3 shifts, because that's what they're manned for. I want to run them on 4 shifts. So instead of each shift having, we'll just call it 330, 340 people, now we're going to have each section running in different shifts, but running at like 50 or 60 less people. And they're going to do that days before sailing into enemy territory.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I haven't seen it done. It's just not the smart move. And when it happens in the real world, and this wasn't like something that they had to do out of necessity. This was because this guy liked it this way. I'm like, did you do it on the fly before you went into?
I'm just going to say, let's just assume that, like with everything with the Federation, they had an abundance of resources. So that's all.
Sure.
But
what did they do? Take half the crew of his Excelsior class ship off to put on the Enterprise? Because that's
very
the only
possible.
way it's going to work.
Very plausible. Very plausible. We don't know.
Not plausible.
We don't know. That's what the writers do. They don't know. They have no idea what they're talking about when they're saying switch to an 8-hour shift to a 6-hour shift and make it 4 shifts instead of 3. I don't know. Anyway, whose turn was this? Was this Dave's or yours?
It was Dave's turn. Yes, it was it was a good one. That's one that could definitely that we could go down the rabbit hole on because there were so many consequences. That people were like, I mean, we just did the episode The Hunted. Picard and crew just left this world to its own devices. Now, granted, that was also kind of the right call, but it's like, all right, if you're still here tomorrow, give us a call.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what Lower Decks teased, but also added to the franchise. These ships that were supposed to come after First Contact and further up and make, additional agreements and whatnot. They never did that in Star Trek until the comedy cartoon series actually put it in. And I was like, shit, that makes so much sense.
Well, isn't that what the Hood was? They were a support ship to the Enterprise.
That was what it was supposed to be called out, but it never got called out. Like the Hood and some of these like Excelsior class ships were all supposed to like be the follow behind Second Contact. But that you only get basically through either beta canon or like the behind the scenes shit where it's like, so this was what the original intention was, but we never put it on screen. So
yeah, so I think we interpret it from it. Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
These are all why don't we move on to your
Sure. I mean, we all know that
do it.
Dude, your drops aren't quite hitting right.
I know they aren't really hitting right. That's weird.
Do it.
No, they're not hitting at all. All right, I'm done. No more hits.
Fair enough. So one of the things that I felt that Deep Space Nine did very well was that they did show consequences to a lot of actions.
Mhm.
But I mean, what you kind of see is like Bajor. It was like the big focus for like the first 2 seasons or so, but basically after really like the episode Shakar, where Wynn is kind of absorbed, took over the role as first minister. Like
Mhm.
most of the Bajoran problems just all kind of went away when the threat of the Dominion showed up.
Right.
And then the Klingons show up. And then it's like, but Bajor is still a mess. I mean, they were literally on the verge of civil war a year ago, and now they're super harmonious. I mean, they almost had another civil war halfway through season 3 or towards the end of season 3 when Wynn used the army to take on a whole bunch of farmers who all they were trying to do was grow crops. And of course, they were farmers who were all former resistance fighters.
Yeah.
Almost has another civil war starting right there. And then, 3 episodes later, they almost have to throw down, they have to deal with the Dominion threat, and then the Klingons show up. I mean, and then all of a sudden, Bajor pops up from time to time. Sure, Shakar will show up from time to time, or Kai Wynn will show up and cause problems. But really, Bajor, I think, was still pretty divided, and just all that shit got shunted away when they had the new shiny problems show up.
Can I give
First,
you
the
my thought?
Dominion kind of overruled it, and then the Klingons, and then back to the Dominion. What my
Let me
point
give you my
is
thought
that
on that. Oh yeah, please go.
all the Bajor stuff just like got sidelined. Of course, there were larger existential threats out there, but still, like Bajor went from being like, on the verge of collapse to, well, Bajor will abide by what the Federation goes with, and hey, they can't do this in Bajoran space, to Kira scrambling a fleet of old ships to try to find Romulans at one point. So, I mean, but it just disappears.
Yeah, you think they would have circled back around to that after the Dominion War. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it is kind of like a hanging thread that I think it kind of almost eliminates like the whole purpose for the start of the show in the first place, much like the original premise of Voyager kind of going, not as bad because they had good writing throughout Deep Space Nine, but
true. And I think the writers found a more compelling way to make Deep Space Nine watchable.
Cisco actually failed in his mission. He saved the galaxy, or he saved the Alpha Quadrant in the Federation, but he still didn't get Bajor into the Federation. That was his one.
Well,
that was like his main job when he showed up.
Well, that was his mission pertaining to Starfleet, correct?
Yeah.
That wasn't his mission per the emissary, per the prophets. So
no, but it was his original assignment.
Yeah, and then he disappeared. Like he went AWOL. So I would argue one thing. I agree with you completely. I'll add a devil's advocate kind of situation to you, and you tell me what your thought is.
A Rates advocate.
Yeah, let's do that. So Ronald Reagan once said to the UN, like, imagine if there was some kind of extraterrestrial threat that made itself very apparent to all of the citizens of the Earth. We would be forced to unite together in the instance of this existential threat from outside of our planet. And I think that's true. I to a certain extent. I think that was the principle that occurred to Bajor. Now, did it bury all of the issues permanently in Bajor? No. But I think that they were like, oh, we've got this Dominion out here that we need to worry about. So we need to put all our stuff aside for the time being and worry about the Dominion because we got to keep them at bay. We don't have a lot of resources to give them or fight them. So we need to capitulate as best we can in order to buy time before the Federation comes back. That's my thought. I don't know. Do any of you guys agree with that?
Just remember, Bajor was literally like 3 seconds from signing to become a Federation member, and Sisko's like, "No, it's not the right time."
Right? No, I agree. And at that point, they realize, oh,
the
the
Admiral's
emissary
like,
was
"You
saying,
had one job, Ben. You had one job."
and the emissary was telling them not to, and that forced them to kind of unite in a sense, right?
They don't really talk about it.
Right. Well, I mean,
they just don't do it.
All we can do is conjecture. So, I mean,
it just kind of gets left behind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I mean, I agree. It was underdeveloped completely. We're just I'm throwing in what the writers might have thought or implied or something. But you're right. I mean, it wasn't put out there. Yeah, and it's kind of disappointing. Do you think of any comic books or anything that would have filled that in, or beta canon?
So beta canon, before Paramount did all the whole reboot with the new shows, Bajor joins the Federation a year after the end of the Dominion War, and Captain Sisko comes back from the temple to actually help ensure their entrance to the Federation, because at the time the peace talks actually got hijacked by the conspiracy aliens from season 1, and it turns out that there's some sort of malignant offshoot. They're a malignant offshoot of the Trill symbiotes.
That's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, I thought I really liked it. It was like a series of novels leading up into the big, what they termed it was Deep Space Nine season 8, and that was supposed to be the culmination of season 8 before they kind of shifted gears a little bit in a 9th season going into the next year.
Right.
But yeah, so Bajor eventually joins the Federation, and Kira eventually becomes Captain Kira of Deep Space Nine for a time. So I actually liked them because they backfilled all the characters who left with original characters who brought different things than their predecessors.
Yeah.
You still have Bashir and Nog and Kira and whatnot, but they bring in the new chief of security is Ro Laren, who survived the Dominion War, and she's the Bajoran liaison chief of security. She goes back to Bajor, and so there's that whole issue. But
right.
it does make the original dream of having Ro Laren on Deep Space Nine come true.
Nice. Yeah, it does. Yeah. You showed me the book that started that whole process, and I have it. I started reading the first couple chapters, and then I stopped because I have everything else to read too.
Yeah, they're good books though.
I could tell.
The Deep Space Nine relaunch is that first set that kind of spans that first year post Dominion War were really good.
Okay,
in my opinion, but yeah. So in beta canon, yes, they do join, but you never know. We don't know in the new canon.
Okay.
So Mac,
Dave,
what's your
there's
next?
one other.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna acquiesce to Dave because he's got one other gripe that I especially found a picture of that I wanted to find and give an opportunity to, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah,
you want me to throw it up here real fast?
Sure. Season 1 of The Next Generation. The Scant is what this is called.
Is that John Cho? Is that Sulu?
No.
Oh my God, no.
It looks like it could be like an uncle.
No. Oh my God.
These were a male skirt uniform that they put out in the
with go-go boots.
Yeah, you'll see them in the background of early season 1.
Yeah,
This,
yeah.
well, this is what
said
Deanna.
it was the what is it? It was discontinued because it was awkward for the people to talk about.
This is the same uniform that Deanna wore in Encounter at Farpoint.
Yes.
It's supposed to be unisex, right?
Right. Yes.
It's
I
just
just seen guys in them and
awful.
just. Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you know, in the very last scene of Encounter at Farpoint, Denise Crosby is wearing one behind Picard. It's hard to see because she's kind of, behind.
Oh, is she really?
She is wearing one, yes.
All
And
right,
she
hold
never
on.
wore
Let me
one
see if
again.
I could find
Troy
one.
never wore one again. You'll see them. You're right. You see
Remind
them in the
me,
background.
She was chief of security, right?
Yes.
What was Worf's job?
Rando dude on the bridge. He sometimes but he sometimes filled in at con. He was kind of like
he was. I think he was he weapons or? Oh, he was con.
Well, he rotated through
no.
everything. I guess
Yeah.
Gene, when they brought him on, the original idea was to have like a Klingon Marine on the bridge. So he was basically just the rando guy they always brought on the away missions at first.
Yeah.
It was mostly to just have a Klingon on, but sometimes you saw him at ops. Sometimes you saw him at, like, if Data was somewhere, Worf might be at ops or he might be flying the ship. They just kind of moved him around a lot.
Yeah, I was trying to
be
remember,
honest with you,
because I know he ended up becoming the security officer after Denise Crosby left. So,
and his character probably would have stagnated without a position. Look at how much better Geordi got when he became chief engineer.
Yeah, instead of just sitting there next to Data, being navigator or whatever it was.
A blind man flying the ship was supposed to be a novel concept.
I am so close to be able to providing the issue of what you were describing. Give me a second.
Well, while you're looking that up, all right, DT, maybe you can answer me this. Then there's another one I thought of. All right,
sure.
I think I've hit it just about every series on here. Prodigy. How could a bunch of kids go out there and fly a ship? I mean, don't we have command codes? Don't we have all these other safety systems and all that? But you got a bunch of kids that can go out there and magically get this ship turned on and fly away and fly around.
I mean, that's what would happen in Star Wars and Star Trek. The Federation starships are supposed to be, very hard to control.
Oh, yeah,
see, there's my point.
She's totally wearing a skirt and go-go boots.
Yeah.
I wonder when they shot this. Let's wonder if this was one of the first shots.
Riker needs the beard for sure.
He does need the beard. And then you can see the need for the blackout paper that they have for the back panels there, with all the reflection on and stuff there. But yeah, it's not needed there at this point. But yeah, I never realized this. I saw this subconsciously. I didn't realize that Tasha wore that last scene.
I only saw it in subsequent watchings, like rewatches, like several years ago. I'm like, no, okay. Interesting. Tell me something.
Not wearing pants, man. That's just not kosher.
So Tasha Yar's character, I think, might actually fall into this Follies character. Follies, because she had a very strong potential. Her backstory was tragic and it had a lot of depth that they actually gave more depth to after she died.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, the relationship clearly worked well enough that they were able to bring Denise Crosby back for Yesterday's Enterprise, and then for her subsequent appearances as Sayla, who was another open-ended one I would have loved to have seen them do something with. She would have been a great primary villain for a season of Picard.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said Picard. What happened with going from season 2 to season 3?
What happened to those Borg?
Yeah, those Borgs. I thought that they were friends with the Borg Queen now, who was, what's her name? We're
Girardi?
Bomb. girl, you know.
Agnes Girardi, right? That was
Yeah.
Alison Pill.
Alison Pill, that's her name. You know, because she was on Scott Pilgrim. That's how I knew her originally. And I was, you know, because she ended up becoming the Borg Queen, and then season 3, it's like, well, what happened? That was the biggest confusing thing for me, is going from 2 to 3. There was no crossover whatsoever. I understand, you know, J.J. Abrams and this whole Calvin timeline, how it all kind of, oh, it's different. It's all this, you know, even that, but going from season 2 to 3 just made no sense, especially if you're going to use the Borg as your primary bad guy.
Agreed.
Is a better word to say, you know.
Agreed.
And it wasn't even the same character, you know. So that's why
No.
I was just totally confused when season 3 started. I was like, "What is this? This doesn't make any sense."
So the question
here's
I
my
have
explanation is.
Oh, go ahead.
Here's my explanation. Seasons 1 and 2 of Picard happened in the Kelvin timeline. Season 3 of Picard happened in the canon timeline.
Oh,
That's
so
it.
season, or you could just call season 3 TNG part
Season
2.
8.
Exactly.
Season 8
Yeah.
or something.
Because the producers for seasons 1 and 2 were completely different from the producers of season 3. And Terry Matalas just was after season 2 and all the crud that Kurtzman got from the fans. He's like, you know what? These are ungrateful people, are so mad at me. Forget them. I'm going to abandon Picard. I'm going to move over to, you know, Discovery and Strange New Worlds. Terry handled season 3 of Picard and tried to handle this and finish it up. And Terry, who worked on Enterprise and is a true fan, was like, you got it, boss, and turned it into something that he loved. And you could tell that he loved it because he used the entire show's budget to build the Enterprise D bridge and to bring back the original cast. He reused all the old sets from season 2 and 1 of Picard and Discovery. He didn't build any new sets whatsoever other than the Enterprise D bridge. Like, you could see they were bottleneck. There were bottle shows, basically bottle episodes. They were all on pre-existing sets and things like that. So yeah, Terry Matalas basically said, I'm going to do my own thing, and rode away from everything. That's why it's so different. Now, is my explanation correct? No, but I'm going to live with that in headcanon. So
the thing that does confuse me a little is, so what I was able to take from season 3 of Picard was that the Borg ship that was in Jupiter, sorry, was in Jupiter, was the Borg cube that Janeway violated in Endgame. That was supposed to be the Borg queen that was messed up by Janeway's revenge and on the way out, and how Voyager got back. That's why they're so close to Earth, all of this, and that's why they're all jacked up. And it's been, I don't know how long the Borg have been there, but if it's all the way been back at that time, but that's what we were kind of led to believe, right? So
yeah,
that's the revenge there. The question is, you could do that, but the help that you could have called, the cavalry riding in with the Enterprise D, could have been Agnes Girardi's Borg coming to close it out.
Nah, that wasn't an option. I mean, yes, absolutely. But because the producers are so different, that was never going to be an option.
Right.
So,
but you're right. It was a complete cluster.
You're absolutely right. It could have been. And
sorry, I see Dave and I start trying to fix movies.
I understand completely. I understand what you're saying. I mean, I'm just telling you the reality of why they tried to make it so different. But yes, I completely agree.
That.
That's the whole the plot in the whole. So,
see, this was the one thing that was missing, though, was everybody else from Voyager. You brought 7, but nobody else.
Tuvok.
Yeah. Voyager is the redheaded stepchild. No, actually, isn't it Deep
And
Space Nine?
well, they
the
brought
redheaded
no one from
stepchild?
DS9 except for Worf. He
Worf.
was the only one there.
And they
Yeah,
talk about Odo, and they bring in weird changelings. That's it.
they don't even mention Odo. They don't even say his name. They just mention
is
a
annoying.
man of great honor in the link. I found that annoying too.
Yeah, I think Deep Space Nine got a lot less love than Voyager.
And that's the funny part. I mean, was it because Voyager needed so much redemption, whereas Deep Space Nine is so revered?
Well, I think Enterprise probably needs more redemption.
Enterprise redeemed itself in a lot of good ways. I mean, it had its own issues, and this is one of the subjects I was going to bring up, like bringing the Ferengi in. They should never have done that. That's a folly. We don't need to go too much into it. The Borg, I thought, was a creative idea, but it was way too canon bending. It was way too canon bending to allow.
I was going to say, no, they didn't know about it until Q brought Picard.
Agree.
And showed them, here's the Borg. You're going to have to deal with these people.
Agree.
And if Enterprise was before Kirk's time,
agree.
Yeah.
I mean, agree. If they had all the scans that they had of the Borg at the time of Enterprise, they would have been able to understand, we need to, kind of work on this in Starfleet intelligence and everything.
You could have put that episode in. You could have put that in. That could have been a great Voyager episode. Because
possibly.
Then now they're trying to come back. And, like they get discovered in the 24th century, this Borg left over from First Contact. And then they try to contact the Borg in the Delta Quadrant, that sort of thing. It would
actually, that would have been brilliant. That actually would have been a really good idea, DT. Holy crap, you were due.
You could have used that Project Pathfinder communication array they have.
Yes, that would have been amazing. That would have been fantastic, but no, they had to do it for Enterprise and stuff.
Hell, that could have been Endgame.
And that was a good zombie monster episode for Enterprise, but the way they executed it, it just was too canon breaking. It just wasn't. It was inexcusable to accept.
And that's the hard thing when you put that technology into place. Is like you can check recordings on all decks and stuff like that. It's if we can have video cameras in our offices in 2002 2004 when this is on, you could have them on board the Enterprise. So,
right,
you're right. It's like, these guys, who are these guys? We ran into them 100 years ago, but
yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's the thought. So any other parting thoughts that anyone wants to add before we head on out? Or as my daughter says, you look like the kind of guy that says, let's skedaddle.
Say less.
I guess the only thing I would like to add is I really wish they wouldn't have, and it's not really a dangling thread. It's more of it's kind of something that we do is we'd like to fix franchises. They should not have had Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and TNG all in the same time frame. I like having, maybe have Voyager several years afterwards or something. Keep DS9 and Void in TNG because you want that Picard, Locutus, and Cisco fighting. You want to keep that, and I like that part. Because TNG is going away, and then have DS9, but then have Voyager should have been something much later or after the Dominion War or after
right there,
some of this other stuff. Make it at the very edge end of the Dominion War, boom, and then hey, Voyager, brand new ship is coming there to back up Deep Space Nine, and then boom, they get sucked out or something like that.
Great idea. So you're saying Voyager should not have started in 1995, but in 2000, basically.
No. What I'm saying is it should have in this. You could keep it whenever it released, but have the story in Star Trek canon as a few years later than where it was.
I think the Dominion War would make that difficult.
I would respectfully disagree
because they probably
with
didn't have that.
because they didn't know the Dominion War. Yeah, and it would box Deep Space Nine. But I would agree that a Voyager episode post the Dominion War would be fantastic in dealing with the mopping up of the war and everything.
And that's the funny thing too, is that Voyager was clearly over, or didn't end until after Deep Space Nine did by 2 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of mention of that. Now, granted, they've been on the other side of the galaxy for a while, but hey, Starfleet, can you give us a hand? Sorry, we got our hands full. Would have been a great response at one point.
Yeah.
They never explicitly said that, did they?
No.
Or even better,
aside from message in the bottle when, the Romulans hijacked the ship because it's in the middle of the Dominion War, but before the Romulans join us.
Yeah.
So
here you go. Here's a good thing. So right as Janeway they break through that transwarp conduit, then they come back, and then all of a sudden now they're in the Alpha Quadrant. Immediately she gets a call from Starfleet Command. Hey, we have a war going on. You are to proceed to Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
boom!
That would have been good. Yeah.
How do you know we even still have a full crew?
Yeah, they don't. But they need every ship, so.
Yeah. The 7th Fleet is on its way to Deep Space Nine. Reconvene at Starbase 392.
We're going to escort the Dominion back to their space. Join the fleet. But we haven't been to Earth in 7 years.
We're an escort ship. Yeah, we need you. Let's go. Oh, jeez. Well, that's a good moment to go out on, I think, everyone. So, anything else anyone else wants to say?
Hey, you know me. I'm always about having more Makos. I don't think they did enough with them in Enterprise season 1. They make a big deal about having them on, and then they'll disappear for episodes at a time when shit's going down.
Agreed. Dave, our esteemed guest.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. We, very pleasant surprise to have you on. And anytime, any and all of you, these sci-fi guys, please, you're more than welcome to join us at any time. Just reach out. This was a delight. And as always, with all of you and everyone, we are those sci-fi guys. You guys keep dreaming. We'll keep working. I'm P.S. McKay. It's out there.
Yes, it is. And I'm DT Cavman. And we'll see you on the high ground.
Those Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by Alpha Sci Productions, produced by DT Cabman and PS McKay. Silverman Sound Studios Fiddle DD is under Creative Commons by 4.0 license. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow PS McKay on X at PS McKay or go to thosesci-fi-guys.com for past episode information. You can find us on Spotify, so head on over there for our latest episodes. But don't worry, you can still find us on Apple. We are also live on Rumble. You can find us on YouTube with video podcasts and Facebook. So be sure to leave a like and a comment and just let us know how we're doing.